Hello, today we will learn how to install Arch Linux. I'm following the main Arch Wiki guide. As you can see, there are many steps that they are covered in the guide, and not all of them apply for us. I will go over what's most likely to be useful for us, but if something is not working as expected for your case, be sure to check out the guide at the appropriate point and see if there is something additional written for your case. For example, here there is a note, a tip, etc. Expect in the end of this video to have a bare installation of Arch, where you would have something like this, a terminal. You would log in your account or something like this. You log in your account and you're using a terminal. Do not expect something like this where you have an interface, graphical interface, etc. And this would be another video because this video would get too long, because I want to cover many cases. I want to be sure that you have the base install. And after that, we can go over in another video installing a graphical interface. Do not worry, it's not hard, it just takes a lot of time and patience. Be sure to check out any pinned comments from me or something in the description for any possible corrections of mistakes I have made. It's completely possible I have made mistakes. And good luck. Now imagine this is your computer. Which outcome do you want to achieve? The first outcome, where whatever there is on the drive, it's deleted and we have only Arch Linux. The second option, where, for example, we currently have Windows and we just add Arch Linux. And the third option is where we have a secondary drive, and whatever there is on the secondary drive, we install Arch Linux, but we keep Windows and they're separated in different drives. We can switch between them, and here we can also switch between them, but this is more costly because you need another drive. So, which outcome would you want? And this will determine what you will have to do in the future parts, especially for partitioning. I will tell you from the start that option B, I'm going to remove option B and not cover it. It looks like the best option, and but I have tried, I have gone through many tutorials, I have spent many hours to see the best way to see how to teach you to install it both on the same drive. But as it turns out, I couldn't find a safe option to do it. It's possible to do it, but some people report that updating Windows messes up things, and I'm not confident that I will give you a good solution if you really want option B. So if you really want option B and cannot give up the idea, go look at other tutorials, but know that there is a big possibility that you may be able to do it, but there may be a lot of problems, even not being able to boot into your computer. Also, some tutorials you may find, they may be old, and you will have to change some things in some configurations. And also, the thing with the update I shared with you, after a Windows update messes up things, I think it's possible to fix it, but every time you will have to go and reconfigure some things in Arch Linux. Like, I really don't recommend this option, and I will not cover it in my tutorial. I don't have confidence that I will properly teach how to do this step. And I don't want any of you guys to mess up your computer. So I will replace it with another option, with using a VirtualBox. If you have a good PC, this is a no-brainer. This is what I am using, and probably at some point I will use this step, this outcome. If you don't have a good PC, maybe it's still possible because Arch Linux doesn't use that much resources. Option C is a very good option because once you restart your computer, you choose from which drive to boot from. And like when you, in the next few steps, if you're with option A or option C, I'll show you how to boot into the USB device. And from there, you start up an operation. It's going to be the same as that, but instead of booting into the USB device, we will boot into another hard drive. Okay, I will cover also how to install a VirtualBox, and at some point all of these three options will begin to be quite the same. There are just slight differences here and there. If we were to use this option, there would be a lot of differences. Like, this is the most complicated option, and I'm not even sure if it's even possible for the long term. We need two pieces of information about the machine. Hit the Windows button, start typing system information. It will open up a new window. Then we will have to look for the motherboard. Here it is, baseboard product. In my case, Mac, Tomahawk, etc. And secure boot state. So take note of the name of the motherboard, and secure boot state should be off. In Google, search for the name of your motherboard, how to set secure boot state off. And in my case, I found it in security, secure boot, and I just set it to disabled, and that's it. Now let's download the Arch Linux installation image. Search up Arch Linux wiki, and you will maybe see installation guide, but let's open Arch Linux wiki, and here it is, installation guide. At the installation guide, at the first step, there will be a download page. Click it. And in the download page, we scroll down. If you want, you can download it with torrent. If you download it with a torrent, it will download the torrent file. And then you would have to download this checksum signature. Click it. It downloads them. Next, if you don't have a program for torrents, you scroll down to this worldwide link. There, you will click on the first option. You download the ISO file, it starts downloading automatically, and download the signature. They will start downloading. It will take some time because Arch Linux ISO is 800 megabytes. So it will take some time. Okay, the file has been downloaded, the ISO and the signature. We have to go back and go to this part, the checksum. It's above the word white link. And we will need this part, this hash. We will need to check the checksum of the ISO file to see if we have a secure file, if there isn't some malicious tampering with the file while we have downloaded. Hit the Windows key, start typing PowerShell, open it up. If you're using Linux, we will use a better command afterwards. Start typing, open bracket, get dash file hash, then the file path. Mine is in downloads. Let me go into downloads. Where my ISO and signature are, they should be in one folder. Okay, let's start typing again. Open bracket, get dash file hash and the file path. I'll just start typing arch and hit tab, and it auto completes to the ISO file. It's in the folder I'm currently in. Then dash capital A SHA 256 close the bracket and then get the hash. And if we hit enter, we get out the hash and we can check it with this one. For easier check, we can just go back to the PowerShell, hit the arrow up to continue typing, then dash equal, then these quotes, and then go back and copy this hash, bring back the PowerShell and hit the right mouse button, and then close the quotation marks and hit enter. And if you get true, that means that our checksum is correct. It is valid. There was no tampering with the file. And this should be enough. You don't have to do any more, but because we have downloaded from Arch Linux. But if you have downloaded from somewhere else, this checksum could have been changed. So we need to check the public key, the author. And to do that, in Linux, you can type out a particular command. So hit back to the installation guide and the first step. To verify signature, we will use this command. So GPG, we cannot use it in Windows. So if I type here GPG, it doesn't recognize it. So there is something we can do in Windows. We can download Git, then first link, and download it for Windows. In Linux, you don't have to do this. This will give us Git bash. Search for Git bash, open it up, and there, 1 second, and in Git bash, we can once again go to the folder of the ISO and signature. For me, it's in downloads. Then we can type out the command gpg 2 dashes key server dash options auto dash key dash retrieve 2 dashes verify, and then the signature. So type arch, hit tab, continue typing dot signature, hit tab, autocomplete, and hit enter. This will do the same thing as what we did before, and we're looking for this part. GPG, good signature from, etc. This is the same check as we did before with PowerShell. The difference is that we get who the author is, and we see here that it's from Arch Linux developer Pierre. And one more check we can do is of the fingerprint. So let's go back to the website, and here in the note we can click this link for Linux developers, and we can Control F to search for our developer. For us it's Pierre. Control F, Pierre, and start searching. Here he is, and we compare this with this, and here we see they are the same. So the public key is correct and the checksum is correct. So we are confident we're working with the correct files. We're not working with some malicious files. Some people don't even check this. You do what you want. Now, if you are on option A and option C, ignore this step. This is only for outcome B, where we want to use a VirtualBox. In this step, we will not even need a USB device. It's a really simple process to start everything up. So go and download VirtualBox. Hit the first link, downloads, Windows hosts, and we waited to download. Once again, this is only for if you want the outcome B with a VirtualBox. For the others, skip to the next step. Now it's asking for administrative rights. And here it is. Let me focus on it. Okay, it's a standard process. Hit next, next. Now it's warning that it will temporarily disconnect you from the internet. So if you're using the internet, know that it will temporarily disconnect you. If it's a problem, do it at another time. So continue with this installation. I already have it set up. Just hit yes, continue, next. It's a standard installation process. And once it's ready, hit finish. Then we'll start it up. VirtualBox. Let me focus on it. Now, in VirtualBox, you can create as if subcomputers. Everything's virtualized. It's like having another computer, but you're still on your main machine. We need to create our virtual machine, hit new. Let me focus on the new window. Create virtual machine. Give it a name. I'll give it Arch Linux. Then we select our ISO image. It will open a dialog window where you have to find your ISO image that we also checked. Open. Next, what type? Here it has Linux. Yes, Arch Linux. Next, how much RAM and processors we want to give it. Give as much as you can. I probably 6 or 4 gigabytes is enough. Like, experiment. If it's too slow, if it's not working for you as expected, you can always change this in the settings. You can give it less or more, experiment around. And let's give it 4. for the processors. Hit next. How much space to give it. Now, as I am on my main drive, I don't have that much space. And you also may not have that much space as when you're using the whole drive or another drive. So I expect that you can probably give it at least 30 gigabytes. Let's start with 30 gigabytes. Then, yes, this next, and finish. And we have created it. Now, once you powered it on, you will start the installation process. So you can hit start, and it will open a new window. Let me focus on it. Here it is. Finally. Now, it's a very small resolution and it's showing many things. Here in the messages, you will get some tips and what's happening. It's like notifications. You can close them from here if you want to. Next, currently the screen is small because the resolution is small. We cannot change that, but we can make it a bit better after a bit. You can go into view, virtual screen, and usually here you have different options for, let me capture the display. Here in view, virtual screen, and here you have options for resolution, but they are not available currently because we cannot change the resolution right now. Next, when you click on the display, it will show up this notification. It says it will start capturing the mouse. So in a sense, it will be inside the virtual box. And it's warning you that you may not able to remove it from the virtual box. In order to remove it, you have to press a key. It's the right control for me. And you say capture, and now the mouse is captured inside. And we can release it with right control. So right now, when you click on it, it captures it, and you don't. And now, if you try to go outside of the virtual box, it doesn't go outside of it. That's what it means by it's captured. And to release it, just hit the right control. For me, it's the right control. And the right control, it's your host button. Why host? Because many people change it to another button and it's just named as host. But in our case, it's the right control. With the right control, you can start many actions. You can do them also from the menu above. If you go into a view and you have scaled mode, look at how it says host plus C. If you go into scaled mode, so host, right control and C, it gives another warning. Switch, it's just like the capture warning. And now you can increase it and it's a bit better. Now it's a bit better. And you can see that in scaled mode, you don't have the menu. To get back from scaled mode, just hit right control and C. The same as when we turn on scaled mode. It's the same key combination. Yeah, and you're ready to continue with the installation process. Skip the next steps where I cover how to set up a USB device, how to plug it in, how to start it, etc. You can skip all of those steps. And for those that are on option A and option C, they have to go through the other steps and prepare a USB device and boot into the USB device so they can reach this step. And there is one quick correction we need to do in the settings of the virtual machine. Close it out, power off the machine, into settings, go into system and enable FE special OSs only. This should be enabled. Here is it on a bigger screen. Right there, enable EFI special OSs only. And now hit OK. Then we are ready. So you can hit start. And now it's a bit different. It even started booting. Now it's a bit different, and you need to do this step. It's not a problem in the beginning, but in the end, when we reach a step for the bootloader, it will give out an error just because of that simple step. Okay, now you can skip the other steps until we reach here. Now it's time to prepare installation medium, a USB drive. How big should be the USB? The ISO is about 800 megabytes, so more than that, a gigabyte, 4 gigabytes. We need to flash the ISO to the USB. We need a program for that. I'm using Rufus. Why Rufus? Because I'm accustomed to it. If you're comfortable with another application, use that. I'll download the portable version because I'll use it once. Open it. 1 second. And here it is. My USB device is in the computer. Here it is. Next, you will need to select the ISO file. So it will open up a window. For you, it's not showing, but you just need to find ISO and open it. And here it is. And you will leave out the default settings and click Start. It will ask you a question. Here it is. It asks a question, and pick the recommended one. But if there are problems afterwards, you would click the second option if there are problems afterwards. But stick to the recommended. And hit OK. It needs some files. OK, yes, to download them. Yes, it will delete all data on the USB. So know that all data on the USB will be formatted and lost. Be aware. Make backups. And we let it load here and prepare. If it takes too long, the USB may be faulty or some options may be wrong, but it shouldn't take that long. Okay, for me it is ready. My USB is ready for use. We have to restart the computer and start the computer into the USB. to boot into the USB. For that, you will have to use the name of the motherboard and search in Google on how to boot from a USB drive. Or more importantly, you may have noticed when you restart your computer, an image shows with text below. And the text, it says, press a key to run BIOS setup or another key to run boot menu. We need boot menu. So using the motherboard name, you can search for how to, which key is for boot menu. Or as I told you, if you have this text on Reboot, you can just look at the text. If you don't have a boot menu option, well, if you have it, see what the key is and hit it repeatedly. It should open a menu like this, and you will see your Windows boot manager. For me, it's the SSD, but this time we will search for the USB drive. And here it is, USB disk. This is my option, and this will, as we hit enter, we will go into the Arch Linux installation. But if you don't have the boot menu, we will have to go into BIOS. For me, it's with the delete key. You can search in the internet for how to enter into BIOS for your motherboard using the motherboard name, which we saw in the beginning of the video. If you don't have boot menu, it will look something like this. And in my case I have it on the front screen, boot priority. And here is a quick video how I click on the USB and just move it to the first position. Now it is in the first position. This is the hard disk and this is the USB. But there are also other options like in settings, boot, and I have where I can choose boot priority. And I have set my boot option number 1 to be the USB device. So once you click it, you have to find the USB device. Here it is, USB disk. I click it, and it's my first boot option. So with this way of doing it, once you restart, it will automatically start into the USB if it's plugged in. If it's not plugged in, it will go to the next priority, which is the hard drive where the Windows operation system is. So these are all different ways how to enter the live USB disk. And here is once again the secure boot from the, once again the BIOS. It should be disabled. And that is all. You should have entered the state for configuring Arch Linux installation. Okay, we have finally booted into the USB. You'll see a menu like this without the background and colors. It will be on a background only with this menu. With down arrow key you go down, with up arrow key you go up, with enter you select. We will select the first option, the second is the same, but with text to speech, that's reading all the text. It's for accessibility if you have problems seeing. Okay, so press enter. A lot of text will show up with colors. Don't worry, it's expected. It's just overly verbose. When you start Windows, it's also doing something like this. It's just not telling you, because we don't need to see all of this. But for some reason, Arch Linux wants us to know everything that it's doing. The wait time is not that long. Okay, we have booted into the USB. We are in the USB. We have not installed anything. So right now, for your comfort, we can set up a few things like the keyboard layout and console fonts. And this is for the installation process. A keyboard layout, what I mean is that, for example, let me show you. Currently, a keyboard layout is like this. This is QWERTY, regular keyboard layout, and that's what I will use now. But another keyboard layout is, for example, Dvorak. Let me show it. Here is Dvorak. See how it's a bit different. And for some people, this change will be big comfort. Let me show the console back. Okay. Most people don't need to do this. So to change the keyboard layout, let's see all the options we have. So ls/user tab autocompletes. So share tab autocompletes. For KBday, here, if when you press tab, it's not sure with what to autocomplete because there are two folders. So we have to continue typing B tab, then key maps, then 2 stars, then star dot map dot jz. The star means that any string can be here. So it can be, for example, us.map.jz. And 2 stars, I think that they mean we can go in any kind of subfolder. I don't know if they're, for example, limited to depth of 2. But don't worry about that. Hit enter and we see all the different options. The problem is that it's too long to fit in the screen. So hit up arrow key to continue typing. Then this kind of pipe symbol. Then less. What we are doing, we are starting up less with all of this text. And what less does, it gives us an interface to go through it more easily. To go down, you hit J key. To go up, you hit K key. So G for down, K for up. You can do the same with the arrow keys. But yeah, you can do it with also J and K. You can quit by pressing Q. And we have quit. To clear the screen, press Ctrl L. So once again, up arrow to go into the same space. And you can go down, up, etc. And here is Dvorak, for example. So you can also search by typing the slash, then whatever you want to search for. For example, Dvorak, hit enter, and it starts searching. If you hit the N key, it continues to search for the next one, next one, next one, next one. Shift N goes backward search. And yeah, so here is Dvorak. And when we have found what we want, we can press Q. Another way to search is to, instead of less, to type grep and then what you want to search for, Dvorak. And this gives only the lines where there is the key you search for in the line, so Dvorak. And when you want to change the label, the layout, type loud keys and the name without .map.jz and without the path to it. So for dvorak.map.jz, just type Dvorak. And you can also type something like the Latin.1, but we don't want to do that. Next, you can change also the font. The font is changed by set font, then the name of the font, for example, ter-132b. This will change the font once you hit enter. Different kinds of fonts you can find in ls, user, share, kbd, console, fonts. Here, once we autocomplete, it doesn't continue because if you hit tab again, it gives different options. It autocompletes to console, but after that, it's not sure how to continue. So just type F and once again tap. And once again, we have too many options. So up arrow key, then less. And once again, we are into less and we can see all different fonts. We can search with the slash, then ter dash 132b. And here is our option that we first picked. I haven't changed the font. You can change it if you want to. And with Q, we exit. Control L clears the screen. Now let's check the mode we have booted into. This is very important because this guide is for UEFI mode. So type cat dash or slash sys slash firmware slash fe slash fw the lower dash, I think it's underscore, platform underscore size. And here we get, I get 64. You may get 32 or even the file is not found. If it's 64 or 32, you're in UEFI mode. 32 means it's more limited, but it's still UEFI mode. If it's missing, then you're probably in BIOS mode. So you have to go into your BIOS settings using the name of your motherboard and search if it's possible, and if it is, how to set to UEFI mode. Let's check if we have internet access. Type ping archlinux.org or any other website that we know it's currently up. If it doesn't show anything or it shows only ping and the website name, one line, and it stays like that for some time, we don't have internet access. Control C to stop. So I don't have any internet access. And if it shows any text, it should say that packets have been transmitted, but 0 packets received. So 100% packet loss. So again, it tells the same thing, that there's no internet access. The same is for me. Let me show you how it looks if we have internet access. Now with internet access, if we type the same thing, and all of a sudden it's working. And if we wait a bit, it's showing the same thing over and over again. Control C to stop, and it says 8 packets transmitted, 8 received. So we have internet. For some of you, when you don't have internet, you may have seen the first line and without all the 64-byte lines. And in the end, it would say 0 packets received with 100% packet loss. But in our case, we have internet. If you don't have internet, let's see what we can do about it. There's a lot of steps we can do to set up internet. So we type IP link. This shows the network interfaces. For me, the first one is a loopback because I'm on a virtual machine. The one I'm looking for is the second one. That's my network interface. And we're looking for this up. If it shows up, then it's working correctly. By up, I mean the up between broadcast, multicast, up, lower up. The up between multicast and lower up. That's what we are looking for. Not the up that's green on the right side. ignore that. So here we don't have to do anything, but if it's down, we have to type IP link set, then the name enp0s3, and let's set it down because it's up. Let's see again, IP link, now it's down. Ignore the down that's red on the right. Notice how there isn't any up. Now we have only broadcast and multicast. That's what we're looking for, because sometimes it could show the up between broadcast and multicast, and it could still be down on the right. Don't worry if it's like that. We're only looking for the up between the brackets on the start. So just type here up IP link. Now it's working correctly. Control and L to clear the screen. Next, if you don't have internet, you could try RFQ. For me, it will show nothing because I'm not on the appropriate hardware, I'm on a virtual machine. But for some laptops, you can block your Wi-Fi. And that's with a button. It's a blocking of the Wi-Fi. And with RFQ, it will show a table with, for example, your Bluetooth, your Wi-Fi, etc. And for the Wi-Fi, it could show hard blocked. If it shows hard block, you need to, with the button, with the hardware button, to unblock it. If it shows soft block, we need to do a command RFQ, unblock, and the name of it. For example, maybe it's WLAN. And enter, and it will unblock it. And now, if you're on an Ethernet cable, you should have internet. If you are on Wi-Fi, we have to set it up. And the setup is with commands. Type in IWCTL. Next, we type device list. I'm on a virtual machine, there are no devices here, but you should see a device here. If your device or corresponding adapter is turned off, you should turn it on with a few commands. One of them, on the guide, it shows device, then the device name, set property, powered on. So the second device that's there, we should change it with its appropriate name if it's off. Or the appropriate adapter name, set property, make sure I've typed it correctly, powered on. We need them to be powered on. Next, we type station and the name of the device, scan. It will not output anything. Then station, the name of the device, once again, get networks. Now it will show up all the different Wi-Fi's around you. You should look for your Wi-Fi. And the final command is station, the device name, connect, and on the guide it says SSID. Here probably you have to type something about your Wi-Fi that's shown on the screen. I think you will be able to figure it out. And then it will probably ask you for a password. You enter the password and you should have been connected. And then you can, I think the command is quit, if it's not quit automatically. Afterwards, if you're using dynamic IP, for example, your IP changes from time to time, it's automatically set for you. You don't have to do anything. But if your IP is static, you have to follow instructions. I'll put a link in the description for these instructions. Final small step, we have to update the system clock, time date ctl. This is for our clock in the USB, not in our installation. We will do something similar once again, but we have to do this. Check if the clock is correct. Most likely it's not. So let's see the available time zones with time date ctl list time zones. Hit enter, and once again with up and down key you can move around, or with J and K. You can type / to search for somewhere, for example Asia, and or you can search for something even more concrete. With N you search next, with Shift N search backwards. With Q you quit. Once you've picked your time zone, once you found it, you can type time date ctl set time zone and the time zone, for example this one. You type it out full, everything, and hit enter, and it should update your time zone. Now it's time for the hardest part. Let's identify which disk is which, because we will be targeting a particular disk. Type lsblk. In my case, I'm on a virtual machine. This is the easiest case. Here we can see that we have on the left names, on the right size with types. Ignore the other informations. For the names, we see loop 0 and type loop. I think this is probably some kind of a loop back. SR0 of type ROM, we don't need that. And we see name SDA of type disk. This is what we need. This is what we need. It's of size 30. No way to not find the disk we are working with. Here it's SDA. But in other cases, in other scenarios, it's a bit different. Here is another scenario where if you type lsblk, we see much more options. Now, here, once again, we see SDA of type disk, we see SDB of type disk, SDC of type disk. All these names are generated automatically. We cannot recognize which is which by the name. We have to rely here on the size. With only the size and how many partitions each disk has, I can figure it out. SDA has 4 partitions of size 30 gigabytes, and I even have information for each partition. So I can figure out that SDB is my my USB with the most gigabyte, with the most amount of size. SDC is my smaller USB, and SDA is my disk I will be targeting. But we may not be sure which is which. So for more information, we can type fdisk-l, and then for which disk we want more information. For example, I want more information about SDB. So you will type /dev/SDB. They always start with the dev. And then hit enter. And here, take note of disk model. Here, disk model is of USB disk. This is even more telling what I'm working with. And for the partition, I have even more information. With Control L, we can clear the screen. With the up arrow, we can go through previous commands. And here I have again lsblk. I can get more information about SDA. So fdisk-l dev SDA. Here I see it's of disk model VirtualBox hard disk. Again, more context, and all the partitions, I even have their type. And in this disk, it turns out I have some Linux partitions. This should be enough to identify which disk is which. Why do we need this? Because we need to target the disk we need to work with. Because if we go back to the which outcome we want, we are looking for the disks. Like here, they're all cleaned up. They're cleaned up. We don't see the other disks. We don't see USB devices. So disk we are working with, we need to figure out where is it. And here it's quite simple. In the VirtualBox, it's really clean there. There's only one disk to work with. And in C, we have to ignore this disk with the windows inside it. We only want the secondary drive where we will put Arch Linux inside it. So this is what this step is for, to identify all the drives, SSDs, USBs we're working with, and to find the one where we want to put Arch Linux. In A, we want to find the drive where to put Arch Linux, and in C, we want to ignore the drive where we have Windows and find the one where we will put Arch Linux inside it. B is a simple case because there in VirtualBox, you don't have any other options. There's only one disk. So this is the goal of this step, to identify them. In my case, I managed to identify the disk I'll be working with. It's SDA. That's the disk I'll be working with. For your case, figure out which is the disk. And for me, it's SDA. So the full name will be dev SDA. Every time I tell you to use the name of the disk, it's this /dev/SDA for me. But for you, it may be NV, etc. for SSD, for example. I think it's NVM0 P. I don't remember exactly. Now we have found which disk we want to work with. For me, it's dev SDA. From here on out, we will be wiping the disk, cleaning it, and putting inside Linux partitions. So from here on out, don't follow blindly. You can go through the video once without following the steps, and a second time where you have a bit more context. Or you could work with a drive that doesn't have anything important inside it. Or you could be just be more careful, even with typing the names, because here we have SDA, but also SDB, SDC. It's very easy to make a mistake, and a slight mistake can lead to wiping out the wrong disk. I have seen a YouTube comment of a person sharing how by mistake they typed the wrong disk and they wiped it out. So be very careful. Here in SDA, this is my disk, dev SDA. We see how it has 4 partitions. I will save those partitions just in case. How it's currently set up I'll save it. You can save it. It's like a backup of the partition table, because we will be changing the partitions if we make a mistake to quickly undo everything. So type sfdisk -d and then the name of the disk, SDA for me, def SDA, right arrow, and the name of the file we will backup everything. I'll call it SDA .dump. And if we see the file with cat SDA dump, we can see how it saved our current partitions, how they are laid out. I'll show you afterwards how to use this backup if we have made any mistake. So Control L to clean the screen, and with the up arrow we can find lsblk. From here on out, we'll be wiping the disk, so be very careful. It's not a complete wipe, we're just changing the partition table. I think it's possible when we use the backup of the partition tables that everything will be back to normal. But after formatting everything, there's no going back. Okay, now I'll be using fdisk. There are other programs as well. Use what you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with fdisk, and that's what's also used in the guide. So we type fdisk and then the name of the disk. For me it's SDA. And in fdisk we're working with commands. For example, p, enter, prints out what we had with fdisk-l, and then the name of the disk. Okay, this is the one I'm working with. It's the correct one. I'll continue. Next, we need to delete all of these partitions, this table. Let's hit M for help. This gives us all the possible commands. We need to create a new label, and more specifically, we'll create a new empty GPT partition table. So G, enter. Okay, so P to print, and now it's completely empty. And there's a couple of ways to undo. If we hit Q, this quits without saving. So if I go into fdisk again and print, everything's back to normal. If I hit G to clean up again everything, P to print, it's all empty. With W, you save it. You quit with saving. Be careful here with saving. You don't have to follow me along right now, but I'll save it. And let's say I've made a mistake. So lsblk, we see how SDA is empty. And we made a backup. Let's use the backup. So we have to type sfdisk, then the disk we're working with. For me it's SDA, left arrow, and the file we created. For me it's SDA dump. And it recreated everything. And all the, everything's back to normal. And let me quickly try to mount them. So for example, mount def SDA3 to mount and ls mount. I have my files there. So you saw how it's not a complete deletion. Let me unmount. And Control L to clean the screen. lsblk, we're back to the start. So from here on out, let's go to fdisk def SDA, print, and let's start formatting. For formatting, I already showed you, we have to press G and enter. And if we print, all the partitions are deleted. If I go to the other fresh install in a VirtualBox, lsblk, here it's quite easy, it's actually the same, fdisk def sda. For me here it's also sda. Then if we print, it's empty, but we can press G and enter. If we print, again, it's empty. We're working with the GPT partition table. So now, in all of the cases, in all of the 3 different outcomes, from here on out, it's all the same. Let's create the needed partitions. We create a new partition by pressing enter. Next, a partition number. Here, most often, the default values will be what we need. To accept the default value, hit enter. The first sector, again, the default value is what we need. Hit enter. Last sector. By default, the last sector will take up all of the free space. We don't want that for the first partition. The first partition will be the boot partition. Now, how much space to give to the boot partition? Most people put here 500 megabytes, or some even write 300 megabytes. But if you have the space, there's no going wrong with putting 1 gigabyte of space. So you start with a plus, then a number, and what type. G for gigabyte or M for megabytes. So 500 megabytes. I will use 1 gigabyte for the boot partition. Hit enter. Now, if you've had a clean disk to work with, this question will not show up. I, on the other hand, had other partitions with formatted files there. It's asking me where I'm currently writing, there is a signature there. It's from the past boot partition. Do you want to remove it? What happens if we do not remove it? If we do not remove it, it will continue to use the same files as before, but the difference is the size of our partition. So if before it was 20 gigabytes of video files and I create a new partition on the same space, but now it's 10 gigabytes, it will be the same disk and files, but only 10 gigabytes of everything. But we want new clean partitions. So I will remove the signature. Yes. Type Y and hit enter. And when we exit and save, then everything will be removed. If I delete the partition now and create it again, it will ask me once more, do you want to remove the signature? If I hit Q to exit without saving, the signature will be there. Now print. We have the boot partition. Next is swap partition. You can go add it in 2 ways. Either create a partition or use a swap file. If you use a swap file, you don't need a swap partition. And the plus side of a swap file is that its size is dynamic. You can easily change it. Whereas once we create the partition now, we cannot change it. Or it will be very hard to change it. So which one of the 2 options to pick? A swap partition is the easiest to set up. So we will pick swap partition. I also use a swap partition. Other people also say there are other positives of a swap partition. I think with hibernation, that it's easier to set up, but there most of the time they're both identical ways to set up swap space. We will create a new partition for the swap partition. Hit N. The default is the second partition number. Okay. First sector, the default is what we need. Then the last sector is how much space should the swap partition be. So how much should the swap partition size be? It depends on your RAM. There is a table for how much to take as space, but some people even ignore this table. This is not some kind of an official table, it's a recommendation. And some people ignore it and they just put 2 gigabytes, 4 gigabytes, or even 16 gigabytes. I follow the table of recommendation. For me, I fall into this category. I have 64 gigabytes of RAM, so I'll just write 4 gigabytes of swap space. If you have less than or equal 2 gigabytes of RAM, you multiply it by 2. If you have 16 gigabytes of RAM, you can also just put 4. This is the table to look for. So decide how much you need with the help of the table. I will put plus 4 capital G. This is 4 gigabytes. Enter. And once again, partition 2, in my case, it turns out it has a signature from my previous swap. And I will remove it because I want everything to be wiped. Hit yes. Next, let's print. We have boot partition, we have swap, we need a root partition. So once again, create a new partition. Yes, we are working on the third partition number. The first sector is also correct. And the last sector. Now, usually I just have a root partition. So I usually just hit enter and take up all of the space. But in this case, I'll create a home partition because of you guys. Somebody may want to have a home partition. If you don't want a home partition, it's easier to set it up. So here, if you don't want a home partition, just hit enter. What do I mean by a home partition? The root partition will be where Linux resides, where we will install everything, where software will reside. A home partition is like your disk drive D in Windows, where you have your movies, your documents, etc. Why do people separate their personal files from the system? Well, just like in Windows, where once you reinstall your computer, you can keep all of your files. You don't have to copy them around to back them up, etc. So if you have 1 terabyte for the home partition, you don't have to worry about backing it up. And you can just reformat your root partition, and your home partition you can leave it out. And in my case, I'll decide how much space to give for my root partition. I don't have much free space here. I think I'm working with 30 gigabytes. So I don't have enough to give for the root partition, but usually as a guidance, it should be more than 20 to 25 gigabytes. So more than 20, 25 gigabytes, more than that. At a minimum 20, 25. You can go with lower, but you will very quickly fill it up. I don't know what you will install in there. In your workflow, you may not install that much, but if you have the space, like in recent years, space is cheap. Most people have terabytes of free space. Recent games are 200 gigabytes. In my case, I'll go with the absolute minimum and type 20 gigabytes. I think you can even go with 15 gigabytes or even less, but okay, 20 gigabytes in my case. Enter. And once again, I'll remove the signature. Now, next, we have our home partition. Hit N for new partition, the default. And then for first sector, the default. And last sector, the default. Let's print. Okay, here it's asking us to delete the signature. Yes, my bad. Let's print. And here we see all of our partitions. And we see that the home partition, which is SDA4, it took up only 5 gigabytes because that's what I had. Now we just have to change the type of the boot partition in our swap partition. Let's hit T. Which partition number? Now the default is not what we want. We start with the first one. Then what should be the type? I think the type for the boot partition should be 1, but let's look at the list. Type L. And here we have all the different types. Let's choose the first one. FE system, that's what we want. So Q to exit this list. In this list you can go with arrows down and up to see all the different types, but to exit hit Q. Now we are back into the which partition type. Notice how everything above is not cleared up. We're in a terminal. It's a side effect of using the terminal. We are outside of all those types. So FE system is type 1. We changed it. Let's print to confirm. Yes, the boot partition is of FE system. What we want. Now let's change the swap. Hit T, the second partition, and let's list out all the different types with L and enter. And we can see that Linux swap is on 19. Hit Q to exit and type 19, enter. Now P to print. It's ready. If we hit Q, we will exit without saving. If we hit W, only W, we will exit and save. So the signatures will be wiped. So everything we had before, we will not be able to access it. I think if we use the backup, we will be able to access it. But it's not 100% certain. So once you're sure, triple check if you're on the correct drive, if you're on, if everything's set up correct, be absolutely sure, because the going back may not be certain. Once you're sure, hit W and enter. Now, if we type fdisk-l dev SDA, that's my disk we worked on, it's changed. Now, if I go back and do fdisk-l, not -l, fdisk dev SDA, the disk I worked on, and I type, let's print it out, and I delete for example, delete the last partition. I hit D, 4. You don't have to do this, I'm demonstrating something. I deleted it. Now, if I create it again with N, the first sector, all of it, hit enter. Do you notice how it's not asking me what to do with the signature? It's been wiped. it's removed. Now, if I hit Q to exit without saving, so I undo everything. If I, for example, mount my root partition, SDA3 to mount, you see that there's even errors. I can't even mount it. Like, it's completely wiped. Right now, it's only a partition. We need to format it, but I'm just demonstrating how things have changed. It's different than before. Now, let's format the partitions so that we can mount them. I'll later explain what it means to mount them. Control L to clean the screen. And let's do fdisk-l and the disk where the partitions are. Okay, let's format them. Once we format them, most likely there's no going back. I think the backup we used, this SDA dump, the backup we used, probably it will be able to fix everything, but don't depend on it. So let's format the root partition. It's mkfs.ext4 def, and my root partition is SDA3. Triple check it, be sure. It's formatted. Next, we need to format our home, mkfs.ext4 def SDA4. Enter, that's my home partition. If you don't have a home partition, you can ignore this, this current step. Now, let's work with our swap. MK, let's go back to the table. With the up arrows, I brought back the past command. Now the swap, mk swap def SDA2. Enter. Next is the boot partition. It's mkfs.fat-F32 def and then SDA1. Enter. Okay, that's it. Next is to mount them. Okay, our partitions are ready to work with. Which partitions? fdisk-l def SDA. These are the partitions. In order to work with them, we have to mount them. Why do we have to mount them? What does this mean? Well, mounting, think of it like when you insert your USB device, it's automatically mounted and you have access to it. When you click safely remove the device, it's still connected, but we don't have access to it. It's as if it's unmounted. It's similar in our case. Right now, we want to mount each partition in order to have access to it, to create files, to, in our case, also install Linux. Let's mount them. So mount def SDA3. We need to mount our root partition first. SDA3 is my root partition. We mount them at the mount folder. And right now, if we ls into root, ls into root mount folder, we see we have connection with the root partition. Before, this folder was empty, but now we see what's inside the root partition. Next, we need to mount our boot partition. So def SDA1 inside our mount and boot folder, but this will give error because the folder does not exist. So we need to type make dir. This will both create the folder and mount it there. Now ls in mount, we see the boot folder. And let's mount, if we have a home directory, let's mount it. Def SDA 2, no, that's our swap, SDA 4. Inside mount home. This will create it and mount it. Here we see both folders, everything is mounted, and now we need to also work with our swap partition if you have a swap partition. So swap on def SDA2 is my swap partition. We're ready to go to the next step where we install Linux. Okay, partitions are ready. They're formatted, mounted. We're ready to finally install Linux. Fstab -k mount base Linux Linux firmware. Okay. We're installing base, we're installing Linux, and we're installing Linux firmware. Okay, everything is correct. Enter. It's downloading everything, installing. We just have to wait it out. After this step, we will have a few configurations to make, like the time zone, localization, creating a user. We are very close to finishing everything. It's not a hard process, it just takes time and commitment. If you have reached this far, congratulations. It's not everyone is willing to go through all of this. If there are any mistakes, it's normal to start from start all over again in the installation process. I have installed Arch Linux many times because I have made many mistakes, and I learn from the mistake and start over. Okay, it's installed. We installed Linux, but if we restart the computer, it doesn't know which partition where to mount. It will not automatically mount them. So we need to generate a file. They're already mounted, so it will be easy to tell the computer where to mount them. So gen fstab -U mount 2 right arrows mount etc fstab. Next we need to check the file if everything is alright, and we can do it with a text editor. Most people use nano, then mount etc fstab, and this is it. You can use it as any text editor, but and with Control X you can exit. But I recommend learning the basics of Vim, because why learn Vim now? By learn, I don't mean learn master it, I mean the absolute basics, because every machine has Vim, or I think VI, and not every machine has Nano. So you may reach a point where you're in a Linux machine and you have only Vim and don't have the rights to install Nano, and you will be forced to use Vim. So I think this is the perfect moment to get introduced to Vim, to at least know how to exit Vim. So hit enter, and we see we even have some syntax highlighting. So now we can see, in my case, it seems correct. SDA3, it is correctly mounted to the root. SDA1, the boot partition, is in boot folder. SDA4 is in the home folder, and SDA2, our swap, is not mounted, but it's written as a swap. Okay, it's correct, and let's press shift with the semicolon button. So we have these two dots, and then Q, because we're not saving anything. If you want to save and quit, we write WQ, but just Q here. If you have written some changes, and deleted them, for example, you can move around with the arrow keys, and you can start typing by pressing I. You're in insert mode. Escape to exit insert mode. But in insert mode, you can type, and once you delete it, it may think that the file is modified, but it's not. So if we press the shift semicolon and then Q, it says you cannot save it. It's just we have written in there. In that case, easiest way, you can just press U. This is the undo button. U, and you get to the oldest change, and then shift semicolon Q, and it's over. The nightmare is over. Okay, we can clear the screen with Control L. Now, if we restart the computer, it will not boot. We need to configure some things. And even before configuring the boot part, we need to configure things like time zone, networking, etc. So it's easy for us next time when we reboot. It's ready for use. So we have to type arch ch root mount. What this does is we will go inside our Arch installation. Now we're no longer inside our USB, we're in our Arch installation. Now everything that worked until now, it may not work inside our Arch system because it's working differently there. Where if we type ls and the root, you see like it's a bit different. Like ls mount, it's empty, but we know that there should be the home folder, the boot folder, but if you notice, they're here. Home, ls boot, they're here because we're inside our in our Arch installation. A change has been made, and from here on out we need to configure some things and to generate our boot partition files. Now let's set up our time and keyboard language. We did something similar in the beginning, but this was for our system in the USB. Now we are in our Arch installation. There everything is new. Let's start with the time, with setting the time zone. ln-sf user share zone info, then region. Press tab 2 times. This will display all the possible options. our region. For example, let's pick Asia, then tap 2 times once more, and you will see different cities. We can pick any one of them. You pick your location for the time zone. Then space, etc local time, and we hit enter. Once that is done, we need to type hw clock sys tohc. This synchronizes the hardware clock. Now remember how I shared that every system should have VI or Vim, where our installation is so clean that we don't even have that. We have installed in our system during our pacstrap command mount base Linux and Linux firmware. And for example, I think that if we put here Vim, it will also install Vim. And this is only what we have: base Linux, Linux firmware. So we don't have even nano. We need for the next part a text editor. And we install packages in Arch Linux now with pacman-s and then the package name. From here on out, we will use nano. I will not be harsh on new users. I wanted to introduce Vim because I don't want you guys to be forced to use Vim in a situation where you don't have another option. I want you to have very basic experience with Vim. Okay, we will install nano. Here it is asking us if we want to proceed with the installation, and the default is yes, so enter. Okay, we have nano. Now we need to edit a file. So nano etc local gen. Okay, and we need to find all of these lines are commented. This is this character here means the line is commented, so it's completely ignored. We want to uncomment a particular line. So in our case, we're looking for EN, US, UTF. Here it is, EN, US, UTF. And we delete this part. Okay, not that part. This part. Now it's uncommented and it will be used. For your case, you can uncomment any other locale. For your case, it may be a bit different, but I am, in my case, ENUS UTF-8 is what I need. So Control X. Yes, it's modified, so save it. The file name, the same. Okay. Now we need to generate locales. Local gen. It worked. And one last thing, we need to once more go nano etc local conf. It's a new file. We need to type lang equals en US capitals UTF-8, and you type here whatever you picked. I picked this, so I will type this. Control X, Yes, enter. Next, if you have picked a keyboard layout, you can save it. You have to type it inside a file. This file, it's etc v console.conf. etc v console.conf. And here you should type key map with capitals equals and the key map, for example, Vorak or d-latin1. But I don't need it, so I didn't save it. Okay, next we need to type our name of the machine, host name. Control L to clean the screen. Like, do you see this root at arch ISO? This arch ISO, we will change it to be what we pick. So nano etc host name. And here we type whatever we want. I will call it YouTube machine or YouTube tutorial or just YouTube. Control X, yes, enter. Now Control L to clean the screen, and we need to install to configure our network in order for us to have access to the internet. So pacman-s network manager. Yes, it will download and install packages. And we need to enable it. System ctl enable network manager. And it created symlinks. Now we have to create a root password. What does this mean? It's like the administrator password. This is the password for access of everything, complete access of the system. So it should be a strong password. Control L to clean the screen. We type passwd. And here we pick a password, retype it. It's updated successfully. As you type, you will see nothing, no asterisks, but I think somewhere in settings you can change that so it shows asterisks. Now let's create a user. So user @-m and the name. Then pass wd and your username to create a password for the user. Password create. Now we need to add our user into groups. User mod -a capital G will audio video optical storage, and then the name of our user. The will group is a group for having root access. Audio group, video audio is for I'm not completely sure about that group. There's more info in the guide about each of these groups. I think optical is for CD drives, DVD drives, etc. Okay, so hit enter, and then pacman-s sudo. Yes. And now let's enter vsudo. But an editor of Vim doesn't exist. I think we have to type editor equals nano, then vsudo. This will use nano for editing. And we have to uncomment a particular line. It's this one. Uncomment to allow members of group will to execute any command. We uncomment it. Control X. Yes. Enter. Control L to clean the screen. Before we continue onward with installation of grub, we need one small package to install for our CPU. So we type pacman-S, and if you're on AMD CPU, ignore the GPU. If it's AMD CPU, we type AMD-ucode. If you're on Intel, you should type Intel ucode. I am on AMD, so I'll type AMD ucode. This is for to apply security and performance patches for the CPU. So it's possible to miss this step and continue onwards, and everything will seem to work fine, but I think if we miss this step, there's a small possibility of having problems afterwards. So hit enter. Yes, install. And there should be a file created at boot, and then for me it's amd-ucode.img. But for you it should be Intel, if you're on Intel, and then the same. Yeah, the file is created at boot. And later, after some time, for confirmation, it will show up at some point later that I have amd-ucode.img. If you're on Intel, don't worry if at a later point at the confirmation it's not AMD for you. If you're with Intel, every time I talk about AMD ucode, for you it's Intel ucode. So don't worry if it's a bit different for you if you're on Intel CPU. Now we're almost ready. We just need to write a few more lines. If you reboot the computer, everything's perfect. It knows what to mount, where each partition to mount. We have the files, everything is installed. We just need a few configurations to make. To do that, we need to install pacman-s grub and fboot mgr and hit enter. Now let's clean up the screen with Control L. Now be careful here what you type, because I recorded this once and I made a mistake in the letters. So be careful how you type it. So type grub install space 2 dashes target equals x86, then the lower dash 64 dash f space 2 dashes fe dash directory equals now where we mounted the boot directory. It's at boot. Then space 2 dashes bootloader dash id equals grub lower dash UI5. Hit enter. Okay, installation finished. And now let's make a config file. Grub dash mk config dash o, then the slash boot slash grub grub.cfg. Here I made a mistake before, and I wrote grk, but it's grp, and hit enter. Okay, it found the Linux image. Okay, and then a warning: OS prober will not be executed to detect other bootable partitions. And that's what we want. This is a by default functionality. If a person wants this functionality, grep disable OS prober should be false in a config file, something like that. By default, the system does not, when we make this config file, by default the system does not look for other bootable partitions. If we had other bootable partition, we had to mount it, we had to install OS prober, and to set this flag grep disable OS prober, I think, to false. But what we did now is what we wanted, because on this disk we'll have only Arch Linux. This is a complete base install, no dual boot, because on dual boot I don't have the confidence in teaching it how to do it properly. And also we see that AMD ucode is found. That's also a plus. And before that, let's check that it actually generated what we wanted with nano boot grep cfg. Okay, it generated everything. And that's it. And we're finished. We need to just exit from this, from the system. Exit. Now we're back into the USB. We need to unmount everything. If we hit LSBLK, we see all the mounts on the right. We need to unmount them with umount-r mnt, and now lsblk. We have unmounted them, and we just hit reboot. And now we just wait for it to reboot. If you're in the scenario A, where you have only one disk and we installed on it Arch Linux, it will boot into it. If you're in option B, where I'll let it reboot, then we'll go over. Okay, it rebooted. I just waited a bit. So if you're in option A, where there's only one drive with let me open it up. So if you're on option A with only one drive and Arch Linux installed on it, on reboot it will automatically know what to boot. On option B, it's easy. We're in the virtual machine. It will know what to boot. Like it happened for me. I just rebooted and it automatically knew what to boot. On option C, once you reboot, it depends on your boot priority, just like with the USB device. Even if you inserted the USB device and just reboot it, it would start Windows automatically. And now, maybe it would start automatically once again Windows. To change that, in the same way as we boot it into the USB, repeat the same steps, but this time instead of picking the USB, pick the drive where we installed Arch Linux. Either going into boot menu or in BIOS changing the boot priority. And in the end, you should have something like this. Something like this, where you, after you boot into the right drive, you have an option. This is our group that we installed, and we pick Arch Linux. With the enter key and with the up and down arrows, we select it and hit enter. Okay, everything's starting up, and we should get the login screen in a few moments. Here is the login screen. We have to type our username of the user we created and the password of the user. And this is it. We have logged in. Now, we have to set up network. We managed to set it up in the USB, but now we have to do it one final time for our system. It's different from the USB. If you're on Ethernet cable, you should have internet right now. You should get something like this, where it's repeatedly stating out the same thing. This is if you have internet. Just type ping and any website that is currently online that you can access through the browser. If you don't have internet, usually that's when you're on Wi-Fi. And using the network manager, we will log into our Wi-Fi. So you should type the command nmcli. I think this stands for Network Manager CLI. Then device, only device, Wi-Fi list, and hit enter. For me, it will show nothing, because if we look at IP link, I have only for Ethernet network interface. But on your laptop, for example, this command will list out all the Wi-Fi's around you. And you should see the name of your Wi-Fi, and then you should type nmcli device Wi-Fi connect, the name of the Wi-Fi, name of Wi-Fi, and then -A. And hit enter, and it will ask you for a password. Usually, the wiki says to type password and then actually type the password, but I feel this is a bit unsafe, and I figured it out by looking through the documentation that if you type -A, it will ask you for a password, and once you type it, it will hide it with these asterisks. And once you've typed your password, the correct password, you should be connected to the internet, and even after you restart, it will be automatically connected to the internet. Then you should check with the ping command to see if you have internet. If you don't have internet, write in the comments. I'll see if I can do anything. Now a few basic commands. Reboot, and enter reboots the computer. Shuts it down, but it will notify you. It will shut it down in a few moments. But shut down now starts instantly shutting down. Next, for the console, you can change it like we did in the USB device. Like, remember, we did set font, for example, this font, and this just makes the font bigger. But in this installation, this font is not here. It's not installed. We can find the available fonts at, if we type ls user share kbd console fonts, and there are all kinds of fonts. This type of fonts that start with TER, etc., they are not here usually. I installed them and set up a larger font just because I wanted you guys to see clearly. But you would install it with Pacman if you want this particular font, but you can see other types of fonts and just type set font, and for example, lat1-10 psfu.jz, for example. But personally, I've installed the fonts that I used from the very beginning. And to install the font I'm using, you just type, you have to install it pacman, but in here, to use pacman, you need sudo privileges. And here I am as a regular user. In the flash drive, we rooted, so we had root privileges. Here we have to, anytime we need administrative privileges, more than the regular user, we need to type sudo, then pacman -s, and the name of the fonts I'm using there, terminus font. And it will ask the password for the user. I think there's a configuration that we can change where instead of the password for the user, it can ask for the password, administrative password. And proceed with the installation. I will not proceed because I've already installed it. And now you can type set font, this font, and it will make it larger. When you reboot your computer, the font will not be this one, it will be the default one. To change it, we have to go into nano, then etc v console conf, and there I've already and I think we have to even use sudo privileges, so what we typed before but with sudo. Now we have access to write. And notice how sudo didn't ask her for a password. It's because it remembers that we have already typed the password once, but once more in the configuration, I think you can change it to ask every time when you use sudo to ask you for a password. Here, just add this line. So font equals, and then the font you have picked. And then Control X, and when you have made changes, there, yes, and enter. But I didn't make changes, so it didn't ask me. And now once you reboot, it will be the same font as before. Congratulations on installing Arch Linux. Be proud of yourself. What you did is not something anyone would want to go through. And so what's next? We went through all of the guide and we've reached the last step, post installation. There are general recommendations and list of applications. Now, what do we currently have? You know how when you start Windows, you have it's asking you to pick a user and to type the password. It has a graphical interface. Windows by default has Bluetooth support. It has so many things that once you start using Arch Linux, you'll see that you'll have to configure them and install them yourself. We haven't installed drivers for the GPU, and for NVIDIA it's a bit harder to set up. So it's and I've also tried my best to guide you through base installation of Arch Linux, because from here on out you have the absolute freedom to follow any other guide, and there won't be any conflicts because it's a really clean installation. You can easily start following other guides and just add the new features you want. So for general recommendations, and it goes through users and groups, we set that up. For system maintenance, be sure to when upgrading the system, some people make the mistake of partially upgrading it. Like some people use pacman-s and then add this character afterwards. It does a partial upgrade. It's not supported. Whenever you see someone do that, just do a full upgrade where you just type this sudo pacman-syu. It does a full upgrade of the system, and then you will not have the problem that the person is solving with a partial upgrade. Even I did this mistake before finding out that I shouldn't do it. Next, this is for system maintenance. Package management, our mirror list, we haven't touched it at all. That was on purpose. You can look up how to update the mirror list so that it chooses the best ones for you. Right now, the defaults maybe are not as fast as they can be. Maybe you can, it can be changed so that it uses links that are much closer to you and much faster. And the change, what it does, it makes downloading packages much faster. But this is easy to set up. I try my best to do the most important part, installing Arch. This can be easily changed afterwards. Next, booting, we installed the microcode. It says processor may have faulty behavior, which can be corrected by updating microcode. We did this. And next, graphical user interface, what most people are looking for as a next step. As a next step, in order to have graphical user interface, we need a display server. There are two options, Xorg or Wayland. Wayland is newer, but I see that most people use Xorg, and I also use Xorg. This doesn't display anything, we're still in the console, but this allows us to install the next steps. Display drivers, drivers for the GPU. For NVIDIA, it's a bit harder to do it. I'll make a separate video on how to install NVIDIA drivers. I have a previous video, but I want to update it so that it's a bit better. But on my previous video on how to install NVIDIA drivers, people say that it has worked for them. You can check it out, but I'll try to create a new and better one. And for AMD, I think it's easier. Maybe even they're automatically installed. I'm not sure. I don't have an AMD GPU, but you can always check out the Arch Wiki. Next, you have the option of either desktop environment or window managers. What's the difference? Desktop environments have a lot more things inside them. So you can go into desktop environments and they're officially supported ones. And this is the most exciting part because you can have the freedom to set it up as you like. Other tutorials just pick the environment for you, but they have taken the most exciting part of the installation process. I'm giving you here the freedom to choose which one you want. The hardest part is that you have to follow the guide or see tutorials online. I will not help you out here. So for example, we can see this one, we can go to its website, see how it looks. If we like it, we can see in the installation process, we just install a package, etc., how to set it up. We have to write some things in configuration files. Maybe we want to see GNOME and hear it how it looks. A desktop environment has many things inside it. It has inside it a window manager. But some people skip desktop environments. For example, people that want a cleaner experience, like less things installed. And here we can look at window managers. They are different window managers, like tiling window managers. That's what I have been using. So in window managers, you can install just a window manager without a desktop environment. So for window managers, there are different types: tiling, dynamic, stacking. You can look up each type, what it is. And some popular options, for example, for tiling window managers, which this is stacking. Tiling window managers. Some popular tiling window managers are i3. This is a popular window manager. And and another one is Xmonad. I used before Xmonad, but keep in mind that they're really bare bone there. Xmonad. Yeah, here is Xmonad. So it's dynamical tiling window manager. But there are many options. Look at how many options you have. So much freedom for whatever you want to pick. Next. Yeah, you can check up power management for laptops when you're on a battery, how to set up hibernation, for the sound system, how you want it to be set up. There are a lot of different options like pipewire, etc. We configured networking. It should be automatically working right now. Firewalls, etc. Yeah, for benchmarking your computer. We went through the console font, but there are fonts for when you are using your computer, you're outside of the regular console we used. There should be even for setting up Bluetooth. For example, if you have Bluetooth headphones, you have to set it up by downloading packages, etc. Everything is in the guide. When you search up in the internet, you'll see in forums people asking your question, and regular users just point them to the ArchWiki. You just have to read through what's written there. Then for list of applications, you may notice that we haven't installed Firefox, we haven't installed Discord. They're all here, list of applications. You just have to install them with Pacman. So for internet, you can have web browsers, console web browsers, but they're graphical web browsers like Firefox and other different options, Opera, Google Chrome, etc. And notice how they say that they are AOR packages, and AOR packages are installed differently than regular packages. Regularly we type pacman -S, but AOR packages are installed in a different way. You have to research that, how they are installed. I think they are called user regulated. We haven't gone through how to install them. Next, you can see here all kinds of different applications you can install. For example, multimedia, image viewers, all kinds of different applications. But usually and when you want to see how to install something, type arch, for example, Discord, and here it says Discord installation, some warnings, and official applications. You can install the stable one, which is with pacman-s Discord, or some other that are AOR packages, user regulated. And more information if you want to go into more detail of configurations, troubleshooting, all kinds of problems. So from here on out, anything you want to set up, for example, Bluetooth, you always type arch, Bluetooth, and search for the Arch Wiki. There should be a page for it. And just start reading. Start reading, and you will get the once you get comfortable with going through the wiki and using it, you will see that it's not that scary and hard. But it just takes time, as I said in the beginning. And so this is it. Anytime you are not sure what to do, or there's an error, there's a problem, just search up in the Arch Wiki guide if there is something about your problem, and write in the comments as well. This is it. The video got too long, but at least there should be a high chance that everything is working correctly. Thank you for watching, and be on the lookout for my other tutorials on Arch. For example, I think of making a tutorial on installing Window Manager i3, how to install NVIDIA drivers, how to set up having backups with time shift, which is really important to have backups, because you will break your system and it will you may even have to reinstall everything when you don't have backups. Backups are really important. Or when you're with virtual machines, you can just clone your virtual machine, make lots of copies, and if you break one of the clones, just start up other ones. So this is it. Thank you for watching.